Hello, my friends. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for watching this video. It's going to be a long one. This is going to be a lot more like a workshop than a podcast or anything like that. And that's because we're going to be talking about exactly how to make 2024 your best year ever. And I don't just mean the most profitable year ever, which is definitely one of the goals we have here in this training workshop, whatever you want to call it, to show you how to make that happen, but also to make 2024 the most fulfilling year ever, uh, especially when it comes to the relationship you have with your business and what your business is giving you. If the only thing your business gives you is a paycheck, I am telling you right now, there are way less risky, way less headache inducing, way less complicated and difficult and hard ways to just get a paycheck. All right. So by definition, to me, what that means is that a business must give me something more than just money. Whether it's meaning, whether it's purpose, whether it's impact, whether it's just something that's energizing, whether it's legacy, whether it's whatever it might be, we need to look at business as more than just an income generator. If all we do is optimize for profit, we can build something that is a nightmare to be a human being inside of, because everything was built for this one metric with no regard for anything else. We're going to talk a lot about how to find that balance, how to maximize profit while also maximizing all of these other things so you can have a great year, not a miserable but rich year. This video is going to be very long. And the reason it's long is because we're going to cover a lot. We're going to cover your entire business. What we're going to be talking about specifically is an exercise that I do at least once a year in the size that you're going to see it. I do mini versions of what you're about to see once a quarter. This will work for you whether you are just getting started in business, you are a solo entrepreneur, or you have a big team like we do at Peaceful Profits. This is going to be very practical. There's going to be a lot of homework for you to do. You can see here at step 1, 2, 3, I actually recommend that you do each step over the course of a single day. So this should be a 3-day activity, maybe even time in between day 1, day 2, day 3. You're going to do a lot of thinking. You're going to do a lot of measuring. You're going to do a lot of planning. So many in this industry, online marketing, help industry, whatever you want to call it, whatever label you want to give it, we want business to be very flashy and shiny object and sexy and all of that kind of stuff. We want it to be a raging passion and we wake up and it's just nonstop. But the reality is that almost every major gain in business is done through what I'm about to show you. And what I'm about to show you is pretty boring. And it's uncomfortable. And it can be difficult. There's going to be a ton of people who start this video. More than half of them won't even finish it. Unfortunately, there is no other way to grow a business than what I'm about to show you. For many of you, you are at a point in your business career where you have all of the skills you need except for this, and not having this skill is why you're stuck. This is, for some people, this is it. This is the last thing you need to figure out in order to expand your income to pretty much wherever you want it to be, or I should say more accurately, whatever you are willing to do to get there. So that your willingness is the only thing that's holding you back, not a skill. This is especially relevant to people who are really good at selling. They have a good offer. They're pretty decent at copywriting. They understand marketing, and they're stuck. Right? They don't know what to do next. Well, I've developed all these skills. How come I'm not making a ton of money? It's because we're missing everything that we're seeing here. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into now exactly what this is. I highly recommend that you finish this video and you finish this activity before you do almost anything else this year. Carve out time to make this a priority, because what you will be carving out time for is laying a foundation from which you can make future decisions, future investments. You'll know what to do when X happens and you'll know why it's happening. This is the best way to start the next year. 2023 is over at the time of this recording. 2024 is just starting. It is now time to ask ourselves, what's the plan? We don't want to be running into 2024 like a chicken with our head cut off, reacting to everything all the time. That doesn't work, does it? I don't really need to say anything else other than to ask you, it doesn't work, does it? You know it doesn't work. You've experienced it yourself. You've tried it that way. That reactionary, frenetic, stressful way of running a business doesn't build anything. You can run your wheels in the sand and all you do is just dig yourself deeper and deeper into the sand. What we're trying to do here is build a foundation. So we're going to take this over a 3-day period. Day 1 is step 1, and we call it the look back. All we are going to do is take a really good, honest, accurate look at what happened in 2023. If we're doing this quarterly, we're just going to look what we did in the past quarter. If you have team members, I highly recommend that you involve them in step 1. You won't involve them in step 2, and you will partially involve them in step 3, kind of, but as CEO, it'll be more like directing. In step 1, you are going to actually want to involve relevant team members if it makes sense. Don't just pull them all into a room and say, well, we got to do this activity. Only if it makes sense, if that's how you run your company, if you're, that's how you do your stuff. But I think you'll find if you have a team, a lot of them can help you here. So what are we going to be doing in step 1, look back, for a whole day at least? If you want to take longer, that's okay, right? It's, what's the old saying? I have 10 hours to cut down a tree. I'm going to spend 8 of those hours or 9 of those hours sharpening the axe. This is axe sharpening right here. We are going to ask ourselves a series of $1 million questions. Now, I know $1 million questions, that's so cheesy. Everybody puts, $1 million on the front of something and everyone, whatever. That's the thing that people do in this industry. But when I say $1 million questions, I genuinely mean $1 million questions. Questions that if you ask yourself, they can lead to lifetime earnings, annual earnings, quarterly earnings of $1 million or more because of the nature of those questions. It's like why I said earlier, you may be really good at selling, you may be really good at copywriting, you may be really good at offers, but you're stuck because you're not asking yourselves the right questions. Questions that matter to the growth of a business. A skill set is not a business. A business is a separate entity from your skills. So, what are these $1 million questions? There's quite a few. I like to break them up into 3 different sections in my companies. You may want to add questions. You may even want to break those questions up differently for yourself. You may have something else in your business that I don't do in my business that you need to ask $1 million questions about. Otherwise, you'll never be able to get to those income goals that you're looking for. So let's start with marketing and sales. That's how business starts, is getting your stuff out there and having people want to buy it. Everything else happens after marketing and sales. So it makes sense to start there. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves these questions. I'll go through each of them, explain them. I recommend, if you're doing this as a team, to make sure that this is permanently recorded, whether it's recorded via video, whether you have a note taker who's writing all this down. If you're doing this by yourself, a journal is a fantastic place to put these questions and to put the answers to the questions. Again, doing this quarterly, doing this annually, really digging into these questions. I also recommend that after this video, moving into the future, you track the answers to these questions at least monthly, so that when you do this quarterly or when you do this annually, you're not having to spend a bunch of time going backwards to look for data. I have a single spreadsheet called the CEO dashboard. In that single spreadsheet, I track this every single month. It is team members who contribute the answers to these questions. When you are asking yourselves these questions, you're not just doing it to fill in a box. You're asking to see. This helps to understand what's going on in the business. This helps to understand how one area is affecting another area. When we did this idea of cause and effect, tracking it, being able to track it, and then being able to track the actual cause and effect is the skill that is missing from so many highly skilled individuals who have skills in every single other area except for this ability to see what's going on in the business truly, and then to make the accurate diagnoses, make the accurate decisions, to then utilize resources, time, energy, effort, to then make adjustments on those assumptions and to make adjustments on those pieces of data, KPIs, etc., so that they improve over time. All right, so let's talk about marketing and sales growth. How many leads did we get this year? For us, we don't track leads, we track customers. Why do we track customers? Because we use acquisition funnels. I don't do freebie seekers or anything like that. We only, for somebody to come into our business, they have to buy something first. There's plenty of videos here on our YouTube channel as to why we do that. The short version is it just makes life way easier and better. It allows us to do a bunch of other things. So how many customers did we get this year? I like doing this quarterly. How many customers did we get last quarter? That right there, just that activity of saying, how much did we get this time and how does that compare to last time? That alone, spending time with that, analyzing and asking why. Why do we have more than we did last time? Why do we have less than we did last time? That's the skill that's missing from so many people, is this introspection. Where did those leads or customers come from? Another follow-up question to that, can we assume they're going to keep coming from there? We've been getting them from Joe, our number one affiliate. Well, what if Joe gets sick in February and can't mail as much anymore? Or what if the number of customers you've been getting mostly coming from LinkedIn, and let's just say LinkedIn decides to announce tomorrow it's penalizing a certain type of content, and that's what you've been building your entire business off of, and etc. So where did those leads come from? If you only have one source where those leads came from, red flag. Your business is at a tremendous risk. You can't even begin to imagine how much your business is at risk when you only have one source of leads or customers. Then we ask, how much should we spend in ads? Now, we are an ad spend company. I am not going out and doing what everybody else is doing and spending $40,000 a month on a content team to splash my face all over YouTube. I don't have to. I don't want to do it. Maybe you do. So you'll want to make sure that that is a question that you ask here. How much have we spent in content creation and content distribution? In other words, what we're trying to measure here is, what has it cost us to bring in these customers? If it's a significant amount of your time, remember, if you want to get paid a certain dollar amount per hour, you have to attribute that to whatever labor intensive thing you do as the cost of that thing. So if you want to pay yourself $200 an hour and you spend 10 hours a week doing manual organic marketing, that's 10 times $200 an hour per week, every week for the full year is how much it costs you to bring in those leads. And we'll look at some other numbers and maybe that number's too high. And you quickly realize actually ads would be cheaper for the goals that I have for myself because I can get in front of more people for less money, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so how much in ad spend? And then what is the average cost per lead? In our case, what's the average cost per sale? Because we don't do leads, we do customers. So what is the average cost per sale? Again, if you're doing a comparative month over month or a comparative quarter after quarter, how much did we spend this quarter versus how much did we spend last quarter? Can we explain that? Is it just seasonality? Well, gosh darn it, it's November and December. Okay, everything's going to be more expensive. People buy less, etc. For our particular business, not true for e-commerce, of course. Number of emails sent. So, as you may know, our business model relies heavily on emails. We build big email lists of customers and then we send them emails. Specifically, I'm looking for, did we send at least 40 emails per month? And that's how I measure. I'm not trying to measure like, did we send one email to 20,000 people and does that count as 20,000 emails? No, I just ask, this is what's called a lead metric, which is to say, we can control how many emails we send. What happens as a result of those emails is a lag metric. You can't control that. You can do things to try and improve it, but I want to know, did we actually send 40 emails a month when we could have been sending 40 emails a month? If not, why? Why wouldn't we do something like that? It's so easy to send an email. It takes almost no effort, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes maybe for one email. Did we not do it because we had nothing to send? Did we not do it because we didn't know what to send? Did we not do it because we were afraid to send? Did we not do it because we had no one who could send? You know, maybe you didn't have time. Maybe that means you need to hire someone, get some help. If you're feeling afraid to send, why? Dig deep into that. Ask yourself, is that a real thing? Is it a perception that you have? Can you challenge that belief? Or is it one you really want to hold on to, et cetera, right? So again, this is a process of analysis. Number of nurture content mailed. So for us, nurture content would be something like this. This is a unique piece of content that is meant specifically for the people on our email list. And it could be a blog post, it could be a podcast, it could be a special workshop like this, it could be a number of things. But how many of those did we make? If we didn't make very many, why? If we made a lot, cool. Does that seem to have helped us? How good of quality was it? Did we have fun doing it, or was it an absolute pain in the backside, right? Do we need to get some help to be able to do it more consistently? We had set a goal of doing it, let's say 2-3 times a month, and we did it one time every quarter. Why? Do we not believe that it works? Well, why don't we believe that it works? Is it because we did it once and it didn't work? Well, we might need to change our thinking on that. Almost nothing works just the first time you do it after trying it once. Do you need some help? Do you need to upgrade that skill, or do you need to bring that skill into your company? Then, of course, one of the things I ask is, how many promotions did we do this year? So for me, a promotion is either promoting something that's new. So, if you've been on my email list, I try to launch courses at least once a month. There was a time there where I was almost going to challenge myself to launch a course per week, but then I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's too wild. Usually once a month, although, we didn't launch anything in December. We launched something in November. I think we launched something halfway through August and October, something like that. So how many promotions? That's one way I count promotion. The other way I count promotion is a new and unique way of selling something we already have. So did we do a fire sale? Did we do a 50% off? Did we do a buy one, get one? Did we do, here's a new reason to buy something? We've adjusted, say, the implementation program, and here's a new reason for you to be interested in this thing. To measure, how many promotions did we do this year or this quarter? Now, this gets really, really important when you start to get bigger in any given audience. and you are trying not to launch a new course every month like we do, and you're trying to keep a very simple business, and you don't want to do a lot of changing to your offers and, have to, make all these brand new adjustments every couple of weeks, and you don't want to run that kind of a company, which is totally fine. It's a great, especially great thing for your core offers. Then you have to think of new promotions, new reasons for people to get, for you to get their attention, especially if they've been on your email list for a long time. So this is a measure of how much effort are you putting into staying new, fresh, and relevant to the people on your list or in your audience. If you're like, well, I've just said the same thing all year long, if you want 2024 to be the most profitable year of your business ever, start thinking of new ways to talk about the thing that you've been saying the same thing about for the last year. And you'll see 2, 3, 4x a return, because you'll get in front of 2, 3, 4x more people, probably more, to be honest, because they've grown tired. They have ad blindness. Like, I saw that offer. Was that email again? Is that offer again? Here's another question. After asking yourself how many promotions this year, asking what were they? And I know that sounds silly, but sitting down and analyzing, like, what did I promote? Gosh, I did that one program about helping people to make passive income with their books, and that thing sold like crazy. Or I wonder what that means about my email list. I wonder what that means about what else I should be sending that email list. I wonder what that means about, etc. Or you may see a promotion and say, that worked really, really well. I'm going to do that again this year. It's so funny how many people in this industry do things that work and then jump to the next thing, forgetting about the thing that worked because they're on that shiny object drip, and they end up months down the road saying to themselves, I don't have any more ideas. I'm telling you, you don't have to constantly be coming up with new ideas in this business. You just have to find enough that you can cycle through, and the people in your audience will forget what the promotion was that you did before, because they have shiny object also. They are also on 15 people's email list. You are not that important to them in their lives. They are the most, they're the main character of their story, not you. Now, I need to put a little caveat here. If you say something's closed, it better be closed. Otherwise, you're just a liar, right? So I'm not saying run this is going away forever if you don't buy now, and then run it 3 months later. I hate people who do that. I think it's unethical. It's lying, first off. It's also super lazy. You can have scarcity. You can say, we'll never run it for this price again, or it'll never look like this again, or, there's a whole bunch of different things you can do that are true. So I just want to make sure that's not what I'm saying. But if you come up with interesting, good ideas, like, man, when I sent that email about the implementations program, showing people how I only work a few hours a week, they really liked that. Now, I can't hit that every single day to the list, but I might hit it once a quarter. And, or maybe twice a year, or whatever it is that, depending on the size and how many leads you have coming in and all that stuff that you have to work out. But making a list of what has been working, keeping that list somewhere that you can refer back to when you're out of ideas and need some money, is worth this entire exercise. Just thinking about what was working. All right. Now, how many promotions this year? What were they? Maybe you don't have an email list. Maybe you're using some other method. There is a version of this for whatever you're doing. You posted something on LinkedIn. How many viral LinkedIn posts did you post? And what were the ones that worked? Maybe you're on Facebook. What Facebook posts worked? How many podcasts did you get on this year? How many did you reach out to? How many did you get? What were the best ones? What were the ones that were your favorite? What were the ones that brought in? All of this is just an examination of the things you have tried and cataloging their performance for analysis and future reference. Another question I like to ask is, how many new offerings? What is a new offering? It could be a new course, could be a new program, but it can also be a new offering of a variety of different things. So, for example, um, maybe you tested giving away free calls. And on those calls, because they were free, you said, I'll give you a free coaching call. And as a result of that coaching call, I'll see if you can buy my thing. I would call that a new offering. I didn't exactly, maybe it's free and that the price is free and that's fine. You've given it to your list or something. I probably wouldn't run cold traffic to that personally. But another new offering could be an adjustment on something that you've done before. So maybe you change the pricing on an existing offer. And you said, hey, we now have this new option, which we're calling the sprint version of whatever it is I'm doing, or, the downsell now, which we haven't had a downsell before. Now, why do we track new offerings? Well, because new offerings are a very fast way to expand. You get a bunch of feedback on your current offerings. You realize there are gaps. You close those gaps by creating offerings. Sometimes the offerings are people buying your core thing and you realizing that once they're finished with your core thing, they need something else. And they're probably going somewhere else to buy that something else because, if anything, you have proven to them that buying coaching or buying services is a good thing because they took your program or they bought your service, and now all these months, weeks later, they're like, wow, this stuff actually works. So I'm going to go buy a bunch more. And you realize basically that you're creating customers for your competition. So you decide, I'm going to make an ascension offer. I'm going to make an offer that once they finish this, they're going to want to do this. Once they get this result, they're ready for the next step. That would be another offering. And these are really, really simple and easy ways to drastically expand your revenue without existing marketing and sales cost, which almost by definition means very quickly and rapidly and nearly effortlessly expanding your margins, your profit margins. Okay, so how many new offerings did you make this last year? Now, of course, if you have a sales system and a sales team, you'll want to track how many booked calls, how many of those calls showed up, how many of those calls were closed, and what was your earn per show call. So knowing every quarter how much you earn on average per call that is booked on a calendar, what does that tell you? It tells you exactly how much you can spend to put a call on the calendar. And that in and of itself, because like let's say that you earn $2,500 a call and you want a minimum of a 5x return. Right now, this is an average, right? So let's say you take 4 calls and, whatever, it's like you make 10 grand or something on the third call, but call 1, 2, and 4 are no closes. That would be on average $2,500 earned per call taken that day. Now we're looking at either quarterly, if you're doing this every quarter, or annually, if you're doing this every year. And we're trying to figure out what is our average earned per call that shows up. Well, if you want a minimum of a 5x return on ad spend, 5x return on labor, effort, whatever it is, knowing this number tells you exactly what your limits are. You can spend $500 to get a call on the board. Well, now you can start investing more wisely into methods. And you can just start asking people. You get on that sales call and you feel like you're just getting on these sales calls and you're like talking to these really overly aggressive salespeople and they're like, get in our program. And like, if you don't invest in this, you're such a loser. And, they do stupid stuff like that. But now you have, we don't do that, by the way. I hate that. I really hate that. If you've ever had a call with us versus calls with other sales teams, you probably know the difference. I find that that type of selling tends to actually not attract very good clients. I like having mature adult clients who can handle their own stuff. But anyways, that's a side note. For this particular scenario, you're out there, you're checking out this person who has this claim and this person who has this claim and that person who has that claim. And you can just start asking questions. well, what's your average cost per call that your clients get? And if they come back and they're like, well, on average, it costs $1,000 a call or something, something crazy like that. That'd be really, really crazy, by the way, if it was $1,000 per call, then you would know, right? You would have an ability to not just blindly trust that it's all going to work out, because does that really work out all the time? No, it doesn't always work out all the time. A big part of knowing your numbers and examining is keeping yourself safe from bad decisions and bad decision environments. If you know that you make $2,500 a call, you can start to say, here's what I need. And then when you're talking to people, say, here's what I need. Can you give this to me? And they can say yes or no. And then you just have to trust but verify. Say, okay, you said you can, can you help me to believe that? And I'll go and, do this thing. And it'll be great and it'll work out. If you want a 10x return, well, your cap is $250 a call. And that's your limit. And that's what you go shopping for. And, maybe you want more than that. And so you hire us because we offset ad costs with our acquisition fund. Whatever it is, you at least have the ability to know what your limits actually are. And you can be a better investor. See, this is the transition from working in your business to working on your business. Knowing the constraints of what is required to make a good investment makes you a better investor, as long as you have the discipline to stay within those constraints. This is where you can take resources and put them in areas and it will turn out, right? It'll actually give you a positive return. And you can shift in your responsibilities from having to be the person who does it all the time to being the person who makes these types of decisions to utilize resources. Okay, so that's some things you can do with marketing and sales. Again, as you are doing this, sitting down, journaling, or talking with your team, other questions might pop up. And that would be a good thing. It means that this is an activity that is helping you. You're getting clarity. You're getting more understanding of your own business. If you are an entrepreneur, chances are you're just trying to drive forward. You're putting energy and effort and following advice and trying things and testing things and working with clients and learning new skills. And every once in a while, you need to take a second to try and understand what is it that you just made. Because there's a lot of people driving a car that they think is a certain type of car, but if they stopped and looked around, they would realize they're driving a very different car. And maybe it's a car they don't actually want to be driving because it's not going where they want it to go. It's not going to get there in the way they want to get there. It's not going to cost what they think it's going to cost. Like, there's a whole number of things. Just take a second, ask yourself, what the heck did I just build? And then, we'll talk a little bit about, once you know what you've just built and how it's compared and, what direction is it going? A lot of people think their business is growing. It's actually dying inside, but they wouldn't know that unless they tracked at least quarterly, if not monthly, these types of things. All right. So once we have marketing and sales, we need to go to fulfillment. Here's some things that we like to track for fulfillment. What's our number of new clients? Did we get more this quarter? Did we want more this quarter? It isn't always about volume, push, go, go. Sometimes the best, happiest business is one that just is in maintenance mode in terms of doing so willfully and on purpose, right? Now, I personally have my own thoughts around maintenance mode, and I'm not a huge fan of it. I like seeing growth, but number of new clients doesn't necessarily mean growth. Because what are we always talking about? Maybe you get the same number of clients, but more of them are buying more stuff from you. They're staying with you longer. They're paying you continuity income. They're staying with you for 10, 15, 25 years. That's the business to run. Like, forget all these talking head gurus with their bright, shiny YouTube and all that stuff. The business you want to run is the one that a client stays with you for 10, 15, 25 years, paying you at least every year, if not every month, for that entire 10, 15, 25. You're talking about a really long LTV. right? So number of new clients, number of new published case studies, which by the way, I just mentioned LTV. One of the things that I do recommend measuring is your LTV. The reason I don't have it on here right now is that it gets really confusing for people who are super, super new. And I know a big portion of the people who are going to be watching this don't have enough historical data to start measuring LTV. If you just want a simple way to measure it, so LTV is lifetime value of your the people who are buying from you. In our case, customers, or you could do LTV of leads if you wanted to. Basically, all you do is you just take how much did you earn, divide it by the number of new customers. That's a very rough, like very, very rough measure of how to measure LTV. But for most companies, it's a hard thing. So everyone should be measuring it. Absolutely should be measuring LTV and being super aware and super cautious and thinking of how to expand it and thinking of how to extend it. But the number of companies who can actually do anything about it is significantly smaller than the number of companies that exist. So my recommendation is start here. Once you're comfortable with, so if you have not been doing any of this at all, don't get too worked up about LTV right now. Start here. Just figure out all of this here. Then what you can start to do is once you start to build a business where LTV matters, so for example, LTV really starts to matter when you start thinking about ascension, when you start thinking about, okay, we got 15 clients. How many of them moved on to the next offer and the next thing? That really, really does matter. If that's not where your business is at, plan for it. Use it as the goal. This year, I want to start measuring LTV. I want my business to be the kind of business where that really makes a huge difference. So to be honest, I could probably do a whole separate training just on LTV and these things that we call LTV extenders. It's something we work a lot on in our implementations program, making sure that people have those extenders. But I don't want to confuse anybody by it, and I also don't want to ignore it as something to be measured in marketing and sales. Okay, anyways, back to this. So number of new clients, number of new published case studies. That's something we talk about a lot. The purpose of a client is not just to pay you money. If all a client does is give you money, and that's the extent of what they do for you, you are running a business that is digging itself deeper and deeper into the ground every time you take a new client. Money only gets you so far. Businesses need more than just money. They need proof. They need case studies. They need wins. They need marketing material. They need, published case studies are critical, a requirement for a sales team. If you ever plan on not taking your own sales, consistent and regular publishing of case studies is, if you want to know the secret of building a great sales team in this particular industry, is having salespeople getting on those calls who saw another case study published this morning before they started their calls, and it was an amazing, the client was gushing about how wonderful it is. You get sales teams who have that on a consistent basis, you will have a sales team that believes in what they're doing. And when you have a sales team that believes in what they're doing, it is a completely different ball game. Completely different. They will outsell anything you could have sold yourself because they'll have the belief and not have the personal attachment that we all have to our own stuff, right? It's really, really great thing. So we measure how many new published case studies did we get this year or this month or this quarter. And then we measure success rate ratio. What is success ratio? Well, it's not a perfect metric, okay? That's important to know. It's the number of case studies divided by the number of new clients. If you had 2 case studies and 10 new clients, you have a 20% success ratio. Now, is that actually success? No, because people will take your stuff and they'll get great success and they'll just be unwilling to give a case study, right? They don't want their information out there. But also, we're measuring it against number of new clients. Well, what if you have a month where you just have a ton of new clients and then you're just regular number of case studies that month because let's say you have a 12-week program. It takes 12 weeks for the... Anyway, so there's lots of reasons why this isn't a perfect measure. When you're looking at it from a quarterly perspective, and especially an annual perspective, this number does make a lot more sense. So again, it's one of those things where we collect the data monthly, but we're not getting too hung up on it until we start looking quarterly or annually. The number of case studies divided by the number of new clients is our success ratio. And what that number is for you versus what that number, quote unquote, should be, that's not even the right question. What it should be is better than it was. That's the right answer. And I know it's an answer that a lot of people don't want to hear. They want somebody to say, what should that number be? Well, that's not a helpful answer. It seems like it's helpful because you think you know what you're aiming for, but you're aiming for something that isn't real. It doesn't exist because there are a variety of factors that are affecting your success ratio. And that's what's important to you and your business. So once you start measuring this, find out what your baseline is. Hopefully it's good. That would be wonderful. If it's not, you have a lot of work to do. We're going to be talking about, that kind of work when we talk about looking forward in step 3, day 3. All right. So next is client ascension. So the number of client ascension is simply who ascended to the next thing. Again, your business might not be there yet. Maybe you don't have anything in ascension. So in that case, if the ascension, if you don't have anything, not even really worth measuring at this point. But it is worth realizing that companies that do numbers like we do have ascension. And it's a critical part of being able to do the kind of numbers that we do and other people in our space at this level do. So put it on your calendar, 2024. Let's make 2024 the best year ever. We'll talk a lot about that in step 3 on exactly what to be looking for and how to make it your best year. But just noticing that you don't have it might be the sort of flag to say, hey, this is something to work on. All right, so then we also measure our ascension ratio, which is the number of clients ascended divided by the number of new clients. Again, same issue as getting a success ratio number, but again, over quarterly analysis, over annual analysis, it does tend to make a lot more sense. We do want to track it monthly. All right, then we look at the total cost for the fulfillment department and the total revenue generated by the fulfillment department. Whatever that is. Maybe right now the fulfillment department is you and an assistant. Okay, but what does it cost? How much do you cost the company? You have to stop thinking of your company as like whatever money's left over is mine. You have to start thinking of your company as I'm charging this thing called a company for my time and labor. How healthy is this business actually? Is there profit left over after it pays me? If not, it's not an asset. It's not a business. It's a job. So total cost for fulfillment department, however that stacks up for you, and then total revenue generated by fulfillment only. What does that mean? So for us, it's any referrals, because we teach our team to generate referrals, any referrals that are generated and any ascension that they are responsible for ascending people to. So whether that's a continuation of a coaching thing, moving people into done for you, putting people into partnerships, etc., right? That's total revenue generated by fulfillment. And then we look at the department ROI. What is the return on having this department in our company? Everyone's always talking about ad spend ROI, but what about the people? We'll talk about our labor multiple here in a second as well. But having this department in this business, does it even make sense? Is it turning a positive ROI? The business is not built to be a charity. I say that with such fervor because I see so many people not treating a business like a business. They're treating it like a hobby. They're treating it like a job. They're treating it like a charity. And then they're wondering why they're stressed and miserable and want to quit their business. I would want to quit a business that runs like that also. And I know I would want to because I have. Right? This is certainly not my first business. I've been doing this since 2007. I have made these mistakes. When you treat your business like a business, meaning it must produce an ROI, otherwise it needs to not exist. So it needs to be fixed to turn an ROI, or just it needs to not be existing. And I mean that not just in the business as a whole, but elements in the business, offers in the business. You might be running an offer right now with fulfillment, whether it's you and someone else or something. It's maybe taking too much of your time. You start to do the math and you realize, hold on a second, I'm charging $3,000 for this thing, but for me to get paid what I want to get paid, if I were to actually charge the business for that, the thing I'm charging $3,000 for actually costs this company $7,000. This offer needs to be turned off or fixed. So again, even if you're a solo entrepreneur just getting started, but if you have a team, it's even more important, because now you're talking about being able to pay people or not, keep the lights on or not, right? The pressure becomes more intense because you're now responsible for the lives of other human beings. Okay. So then we look at total department ROI, which is basically total revenue generated divided by total cost for fulfillment, making sure it's the total revenue generated by fulfillment. Now there's a question, why don't we do this by total revenue if fulfillment is fulfilling on that revenue? And that's simply because in my companies, every department must be a revenue generating department, full stop. It's not how every company runs. It's not how everybody measures their stuff. It's not how everybody who works for companies like ours wants to work, right? Not everybody wants to have to be part of a revenue generating thing, even if they're fulfillment or whatever. But the way that I run things, because I've done it the stressful way and I don't want to do it the stressful way anymore, is I make sure that our teams, every single one of them, every single department, every single individual, every single element in the company is producing a positive ROI. Otherwise, we turn it off. It's just, I have too much stuff going on. If you're somebody who wants to have a lot of stuff going on and do something other than business, don't get caught up in non-ROI generating activities. That's where I see a lot of people wasting time. So they put in 100 hours a week, but they're maybe only spending 20 hours a week on revenue generating activities. What's their problem? They need to get rid of the 80 hours a week of non-revenue generating activities. And sometimes that means restructuring the business, changing the business, etc. All right. Next is operations. So this would be a general look at everybody, because you might have marketing team members, you might have fulfillment team members, you might have miscellaneous team members, etc. And this is so important. Again, remember earlier I said there's a lot of people who have skills, marketing, selling, etc., but they can't increase their income, they can't increase their scale because they don't have these skills. This is one of them, which is operations. It's a skill. Honestly, I despise operations. I don't like it. It's not my passion. I love writing copy. I love training and teaching. I love doing all that stuff. But without the skill of operations, Peaceful Profits would not exist. Period. Full stop. You don't build a company like Peaceful Profits because you're good at writing headlines. You build a company like Peaceful Profits because you've developed skills in operations, right? And it's in team building and all that, fulfillment, etc. Okay, so that's important to know. I didn't know that for a long time. And I kept thinking, like, if I can just be a better copywriter, I'll suddenly make tons more money. Unfortunately, that's not really how it works, especially not these days. All right, so total number of team members is something we want to track. How many people are on our team? Vendors, freelancers, full-time, etc. How much revenue did we collect? Okay, so this is our total revenue. Right? It doesn't matter where it came from, how much revenue have we collected? And then we ask, what is earnings per team member? How do we get that number? Sorry, I didn't put the calculation here. It's pretty straightforward. Total revenue divided by total number of team members. Now, why the heck are we trying to figure out our earnings per team member? Well, how much are you paying each team member? There's a lot of people who are running companies where their earnings per team member barely exceeds what they're paying their team members. And then they wonder why their business is so stressful. When we look at total expense, And total profit, that's basically just taking our total revenue collected, taking a look at our expenses, software, ads, and staff, everything, company-wide, all the expenses, and giving ourselves what the total profit is in cash. And then we take a look at what our margin is. Now, 25% is minimum. So if you're running $100,000 a month, if you're spending more than $75,000 a month, I think you're in trouble. I think it's a matter of months before that thing is going to be not good. In this particular industry, and we're talking about the help industry, whether you're a coach, you're a professional, like a lawyer or something, accountant, nutritionist, doctor, if you're an agency owner, if you're trying to be a scaled freelancer, in this particular industry, the help industry, 25% is the minimum. That's the baseline. That's the bottom of the barrel. You are in danger of a couple of bad weeks or a couple of wrong turns or one big bad decision or a couple of smaller bad decisions tanking what you've built. And I know I feel like I'm being very scary here in today's lesson, but this is the serious stuff, right? There's lots of places in business where you can have fun and be lighthearted and all sorts of, that kind of mentality. When it comes to this, don't mess around. This is how you pay your mortgage. This is how you save for retirement. This is how you pay other people's mortgages on your team and help them save for retirement and all of that. When you're looking to hire someone in operations, if they don't know how to improve these KPIs, they need to not be in operations for you. Again, through this analysis, you can know what your boundaries are, what your minimums are, what you can hold other people to who are wanting to help you, right? Lots of people want to help you. People want to sell you good things. We want to help our clients. We love our clients. We want to help you. When people want to work for you, if you have a decent hiring system, they want to help you. But if you don't know what the parameters are under what makes a healthy business, under what you should or shouldn't be doing to guide those people who want to help you, you'll just blow through cash, waste a ton of time, burn bridges along the way, and build something that you don't even want to be a part of as a result. Okay, so margin 25% minimum. Total labor cost is just how much it costs for the humans in your business. And that's different than total expense, because total expense is everything. Total labor cost is what is important to measure, because then what we're going to do is we're going to say what the total revenue should be according to the 5x labor multiple. Okay, this is so important. So we take our total number of team members and we look at our total labor cost, and we're looking at our total revenue collected, and we're looking at our earnings per team member, and we're looking at our expense, and we're looking at, there's so many different numbers to know. I was taught this many years ago by a very cranky old lady, and I love her to death. And she has had a wild impact on me. And she was a retired business owner working for a completely different coaching company, but she had something like 15 companies that she started and sold. And she was just doing this for fun. And I'm sure she was compensated. She was smart enough to do that, but she was in retirement mode, and she taught me something that was so important. And she said that an efficient company strives for a 5x labor multiple. What does that mean? It means for every dollar you spend on team cost, you ought to be returning $5. Now, some of you have people on your team, and for some of you, that number is not 1 to 5. Look, we can't always get there. It's not always possible. but it is a good metric to measure against to determine whether or not we're being efficient with our team hires. And there's two ways to look at it. Some people hear that and they say, okay, time to cut costs, cut everybody. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is your role then as the CEO is to figure out how to get your team to meet the goal of a 5x labor multiple. That includes lifting people up, giving people more opportunities, training people, putting people in the right seats so that they can succeed, etc. So there's two ways to go about it. I prefer to lean into what I believe a good CEO should do, which is to develop people, to turn them into people who can provide a 5x labor multiple, because you still have other costs, right? You still have your ad costs. You still have, costs for, if you have a print newsletter like we have, it costs money to send out that print newsletter. And there's all sorts of different costs that come into a company. Your labor and bringing on a human being should generate 5x at least, because human beings are also somewhat of a risk. And so you need a return on risky investments. And those risky investments ought to return a lot. See, I see people running businesses getting involved in risky investments like hiring human beings and being satisfied with like a 1.25x labor multiple or even a 2x labor multiple. And the way I'm thinking of it is purely from an investor standpoint. If I'm going to get involved in something that risky, I need to see a lot more return for that risk. Otherwise, don't take the risk on. Simplify your business. Use automation. Build an acquisition funnel like we teach, etc., right? Okay, so we could go on and on about 5x labor multiple. It's a wonderful concept. I highly recommend that you measure for it and ask yourself why yours isn't 5x. And if it's more than 5x, then congratulations, give me a call. I'd love to find out what you're doing. I mean, there are definitely people who have really, really high labor multiples because they're very efficient in their systems design, in their operations, in how their business is structured, in what they charge, in how they run their ascension. There's all sorts of ways to increase that labor multiple. Okay, so that's day one. We just track all of that and we think about it and then we let it sit and percolate in our subconscious. At least a day would be my recommendation. If you have to absolutely cram it together, like let's say it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you want to get this done. So come, Monday of January, you're off to the races. That's okay too. I certainly wouldn't stop thinking about this stuff. This is the kind of stuff you should have percolating in the back of your mind if you're a CEO. And that's a CEO of a team of 100 or a CEO of just yourself. If you want to get out of owning a job and want to start owning a business, this is the kind of stuff that you have to do. So we take that time and now we start looking inwards. This is where we start looking at this business that we've built and we're realizing what's working, what isn't working. We know now the car that we're driving. We know now what this thing is that we made. And now we need to contrast that against the lifestyle that we actually want. Otherwise, we're going to take a look at everything that we look back on and we're just going to optimize for that. Instead, what we should be doing is optimizing for our lifestyle so that the business we do create will last and it will be sustainable and it'll be something that will, whether the lifestyle is, do you want to sell it? Right? That gives you a different set of decision-making parameters, or you want to keep it forever. Whatever that lifestyle is that you're trying to design, you can't just take a bunch of data and then optimize for the sake of better optimized data. You have to optimize it for a reason because you are a human being and that is your lifestyle. So here's the questions that I like to ask. What does success in 2024 mean? And what does success in 2024 look like? Now, these are two very different questions if you really take this seriously and start thinking and thinking deeply. What does success in 2024 mean? Is it just more money? Is that what it means? Is it a certain dollar amount? Is it a certain series of wins? Is it a certain feeling? Is it a certain day-to-day type of thing? What does success mean for you in 2024? But even more importantly, what does success mean for where you're at right now? Because, for example, if you think that success means $100 million a year and you're doing $400,000 a year right now, the chances of you hitting $100 million in the next 12 months are not very likely. I'm not saying you can't do it. You might be the one who pulls it off for the first time in history, but this is where you kind of look at, okay, well, actually, what would success be for us? Would it be doubling? Would it be adding another million? Would it be, what does success mean? Is it not financial at all? Is it not monetary at all? Is success in 2024 just maintaining what you have, but working yourself out of the day-to-day? Taking a vacation? What does it mean for you? It's going to be different for you than it is for me. We're in different places completely. We have different desires, wants, goals. We're at different points in our family life, in our professional life, etc. Now, what does success look like in 2024? This is where we start saying things like, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I don't check anything. And I go outside and I work in the garden and I come back in and I don't have any pings and no emails. It's all by meeting and there's agendas ahead of time and and whatever that looks like. That's where you really start to get specific on what this looks like. What does actually living your goal look like? I'm driving this car. I'm saying these things to my kids. I am looking and feeling like this and how, etc. So those are two very different questions, and it is worth spending a lot of time on writing this down so that you can remember it. One of the biggest problems with being a human and trying to achieve something is that we just forget. We forget that we want to reverse our type 2 diabetes, say, for example, by following a diet that helps us to do so. We forget that that's the goal when the donut is sitting there right in front of us, because it's easier to remember the donut. It's right there. I mean, short of tattooing our goals on our forehead and hands so we can always see them, writing it down and reminding ourselves every month, every quarter, every year is a big, big component to being successful. I'm going to recommend a book. When I first read this book, I was like, this is the biggest load of hogwash I've ever seen. And then I saw more and more people who I admired recommend the same seminar from which this book was created and the same concept over and over again. And then I finally tried it. And when I did, it genuinely did completely change my life. Okay. So here it is. If you go to Amazon, you'll probably find it. You can also search it a couple different ways. So you can search it for It Works by RHJ. I think it's J. It's RHJ. You can also search for The Famous Little Red Book That Makes Your Dreams Come True. The thing is, like, I'm holding it right now in my hand. It's 28 pages and incredibly short. And I promise you, if you take it into consideration, maybe a version of it in your life, at least, if you don't buy into the whole thing, it'll help you to make all this work that you're doing here in this sort of 3-day event that you're doing for yourself. And it'll actually make it happen. And the core essence of the concept is that you need to remind yourself of what you actually want. And when you do, it's easier to get because you're a good person. You're a smart person. You're a capable person. We've been talking for an hour. If you're still here, you're serious. Okay. So your seriousness, your capability, your being smart, your willingness, those are not the things that are in question. Those are not the things that are keeping you from getting to what you want. Part of it might just be you don't have this skill that we've talked about, right? Part of it might just be that you forget. And that's because human beings forget this stuff. And they get distracted and they go on this side mission and that side mission. And they're so busy doing all these side quests that one day they wake up and they're like, whoa, where am I? And then they say, oh, it's my fault. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not, etc. And that's not true at all. You just forgot because you didn't have a system to remind yourself. All right. So anyways, not to belabor that point. Next, we ask, what is the 5-year plan for my life and business? You can make 2024 an amazing year if you can look beyond 2024. Short-sightedness will cause you to make short-sighted decisions. And the problem with short-sighted decisions is we think they'll give us what we want in the short term. But the problem is that they almost never do. And ironically, it is the long-term decisions that actually give us in the short term, as well as the long term, what we are actually trying to get. Stability, peace, sustainability, consistency, profit, margin, ease, etc. Those are all long-term decisions. And so we have to know what are we doing this for? 5 years down the road, is this still what we're going to be doing? Then why are we doing it now? Why are we putting all this energy and effort trying to build this when we could be building something else? The thing we really want to do, right? And that alone might make 2024 the best year ever if you realize that and make adjustments. All right, next is, where did I mess up this year? And this is not where did the company mess up. This is where did I as the CEO mess up this year? You got to be honest. Oh, I tell you what, 2023, I made some mistakes. I make mistakes every year. This year, I made some real big ones. This year, I made some mistakes on top of mistakes I made the year before. You have to be honest with yourself about this stuff. One of the downsides of being a CEO is that very few people will be honest with you. You know, your team, as much as you can, you build a culture of honesty, but they want to keep their job. And sometimes the honesty goes in the way of they want to keep their job, and sometimes the honesty goes in that they just want to blame you instead of taking responsibility for themselves. So it's very hard to get accurate data as a CEO in these kinds of areas. So this is where you have to really develop the skill of being objective, the ability to analyze your life, to analyze your own decisions. Where did I mess up? Now, the problem is a lot of people are actually pretty good at this, and they're pretty good at pointing out all the faults that they have in themselves. So you need to counterbalance that, because you're not just a bumbling idiot who always makes mistakes. You do good stuff too. Where did I excel this year? That's important. Knowing what you did really well in 2023, double down on it in 2024. You can just stop doing the stuff you keep messing up and doubling down on what you've excelled at, and that alone will drastically change what you accomplish in 2024. Forget everything else we've said. If all you can do is just analyze, here's where I messed up, here's what I'm really good at, I'm just going to double down on this and forget all that other stuff. Either get someone else to replace me or just get it out of my business so I don't have to deal with it. That right there will change everything. And it'll change it fast. These are not things that are going to take months even. These things can happen very, very quickly. All right. Now, here's some really, really good questions that I have found incredibly helpful for myself, and I hope that you will find helpful as well. Who was a help this year? In this business, you come across a lot of people. A lot of people. If you've been doing it for as long as I have, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Being able to identify who has been able to help you is not only a good skill to develop, because part of it is gratitude, but it's also a very empowering skill, because now you can basically say to yourself, here's who I'm bringing into 2024. Right? These are the people who are on my team. This is my support people. This is, we're going to do this together. I'm going to do this with them. You can also analyze why. Why do you think they were a help? What did they do exactly? And then the next question, which is hard, who kept me from growing this year? And when I say growing, I don't just mean growing the business. I don't just mean growing profits. And then you have to start making some decisions. Do you want to keep them in your life so that they will continue to keep you from growing? Do you want to cut them off? Do they need to be put in a more healthy set of boundaries? Do you need to confront them on the issue because you care about them and you want them to help you, but they really aren't? This is the stuff that we have to confront. Like, the very core of being a CEO is doing uncomfortable things that other people just won't. And that's why you get things that most people don't get. This is one of those types of things. People say, being a business owner is hard. Well, sure, it's hard work, but this is the hard stuff, right? This kind of emotionally charged or spiritually charged, mentally charged, intellectually charged type of activities. So the CEO isn't out there digging the ditch, but they're not doing not hard things. They're doing really hard things, stuff that most people just wouldn't do. All right. So, and I'm not like a fanboy of CEOs or anything, but I think there's this idea that when you reach this level in business, your job is just to sit back with your feet up on the desk and, I don't know what, but that's not, it doesn't really get easier. You can become more competent. And so in a sense, it's easier because you're more equipped to handle the challenges, but the challenges only get bigger and more intense the more successful you become. At least in my experience. Maybe other people have found it to be different, but that has been my experience. So then we have to ask, well, what was a help this year? So maybe help this year was a service, an activity, a practice, a meditation, whatever it might be. So first we ask who, because who is really, really, really important. What is also important, but it's not nearly as important as who. So what other things were a help, and then what other things kept you from growing? Being addicted to YouTube videos, say for example, maybe that's something you struggle with. That would be something that keeps you from growing. Getting distracted by other business ideas, if you're really honest with yourself, is probably something that kept you from growing, etc., right? Staying up too late, sleeping in too long, whatever it might be. The fear of confrontation kept me from growing my business this year because I wasn't willing to hold other people accountable to the promises that they had made to me. And or when I did, I was so unqualified skills-wise that I completely botched it, and it took all this stress and energy and and all that kind of stuff, right? Those would be some examples. A lack of, you could also say, what kept me from growing this year is I lost my love for learning. And so I wasn't able to engage in any growth activities or, whatever that might be. All right. So now we have this really clear picture, or we ought to have this clear picture. And I recommend, by the way, after answering these questions for this, and really for every step, but this step in particular, free writing can be really helpful. So from these questions, you can start to add on any other type of lifestyle by design activities you may be aware of, like the perfect day, designing your perfect day, or like vision boarding, or any of those types of things that you're comfortable with would be completely appropriate for this day of looking inwards. You can also free write after you do the look backwards of just kind of like, wow, this year was not what I thought it was, or wow, these are the things that surprised me. And that's cool too, definitely helpful. But when we look at lifestyle by design, we definitely do want to make sure that we go beyond just these questions and kind of explore this a bit more so that you can really get solid clarity and vision for what the heck you're trying to do. Otherwise, you'll do whatever. And doing whatever leads to circles, and circles is not growth. All right, that's shiny object. Okay, so that's day 2. So day 1, step 1, look backwards, look at all that data. Day 2, step 2, look inwards, lifestyle by design. Now we get to how the heck do we turn all of this into the best year of our life? And this is a very simple activity. The simplicity of it is what scares me about sharing it with people, because I know that most people want something complicated, because if it's complicated, then it excuses our responsibility. We can say that we can pour ourselves into something complicated rather than facing the boredom, facing the internal weaknesses or lacks that we might have, facing the quote unquote demons maybe of our past or our future, things we're scared of, facing the inevitable, all of that stuff, right? So this is very simple. This is going to be a very short section. I want to forewarn you that it is simple by design, and that is because once you have all of the data and once you have all the data, meaning once you know exactly what the heck's going on in your business, and once you have a clear vision for where you want your business and your life to go, it is only simple actions that will get you there. That's it, period, full stop. And it is almost never 100 actions that will get you there. It is a few critical actions that will get you to where you're trying to get to. So that's a big thing. We're all looking down the next 12 months. All of us, I am too. Fear, apprehension, excitement, ambition, dreams. We're all human beings. We all have the same kind of general feelings about looking down the next 12 months. If you start complicating things from January 1 onwards, it's only going to get worse. There's too many distractions these days. There's too many opportunities. People always ask me, or on sales calls or in sales conversations or when we're doing Q&As, hey, what about this method? Should I do that? Does it work? And the answer is, yeah. We live in a fantastic age where tons of stuff works. Only marketers are the ones who are constantly trying to convince you that something else doesn't work because they don't want you to go buy that other thing. But look, the reality is VSLs work, webinars work, emails work, LinkedIn works, Facebook works, content works. So many things work. That's the beautiful thing about running a business these days. The problem is you cannot work all of them, and the rewards you're looking for come from the mastery of any one of them. If you want big results from something, you have to master it. You can't get big results by dabbling in a bunch of different things. And so by definition, it means fewer things, focusing on fewer things, doing fewer things is what gets you to being able to pour the time, attention, energy, effort into getting really good at something. And so if we start January 1 already on the wrong foot of trying to do a ton of different things, knowing that our human condition is to, over time, complicate things, get distracted by shiny object. We know by July, August, September, October, we're going to have 50 more things that we're thinking about and being distracted by and problems in our face. So I want to reiterate that day 3, step 3, looking forward, is simple on purpose because it's the only thing that's going to give us a chance to actually succeed. It's the only thing that will give us a chance to actually succeed is simplicity. All right, so here we go. Here's how you take everything that we've done, turn it into the best year you've ever had, and then to be able to repeat this year after year by simply repeating this exercise. Everything I've said, you can do every quarter. You can do every month if you want, not necessarily every quarter, every year. I've been doing this, I think, now for maybe 12 or 13 years. You ask yourself 2 questions. What is our weakest link in the chain? Okay, so if you're looking back at all the data and using your lifestyle by design as a constraint so that we're not just wildly optimizing for the maximization of everything, which is impossible, by the way, we ask, what is our weakest link in the chain? Let's say you're really good at sales, really good at marketing, and everybody who buys from you is very upset. What's the weakest link in the chain? The weakest link in the chain is your fulfillment. You have very few case studies. There's no ascension going on, etc. Let's say you are good at marketing, good at sales, good at fulfillment, but you have no margin. And you look at your labor multiple and you're like, oh my goodness, my labor multiple is like 1.1. What's the weakest link in the chain? It's the efficiency of your labor. So you're looking for not what are the multiple weakest links in the chain, right? That's why step 3 is a full day at least, because you can't just answer this in one sentence. You got to think about this. What is the weakest link? What is a thing that we are just the worst at as a company? Again, if you're just a company of one, that's fine too. What am I the weakest? What's my weakest link in the chain? And think about it. Really think about it, because business, the best way to think about business is it's like a chain. And the power, especially the revenue generating power of your business, is only as strong as the strength of the chain. Now, I don't know, you've probably heard this before, but a chain is only as strong as the weakest link, which is to say, all that pressure is going to go on that link and it's going to break. And that's how strong the chain is. It's as strong as whatever it takes to break that weak link. So rather than chasing shiny objects and going over here and doing this and doing that, we first look at, well, what is the thing that's keeping this business from pulling more revenue, pulling more lifestyle, pulling more whatever? Remember, we look at our data as it is sort of through the lens of lifestyle design. If big money is part of our lifestyle design, then that makes sense. We would start to look at what are those elements of the data we've collected that contribute to, if peace is a big component of your lifestyle design, taking a look at profit margin. If time off and flexibility is important to your lifestyle design, you'd be looking at things like fulfillment and operations, etc. Right? So again, we could have a whole separate training on finding your weakest link and what's yours specifically, but you should have a pretty good idea. The other thing that we ask ourselves, which is similar, but it's different enough, and that is to say, what is our number one constraint to scale? So for most people, it's often either your number of leads. So you just are not getting enough leads for what you're trying to do. Okay. If you're the kind of person who's like, I'm going to talk to 3 people and 2 of them better close, and that's what I want my business to be, that's probably not a realistic view of how business works. You need tons of leads in order to grow a really strong business. This is why Peaceful Profits builds acquisition funnels for people. Acquisition funnels, if you don't know, they create customers by offsetting ad costs. So the goal is you spend $1 on ads, you get $1 back, and you get a customer. What does that mean? It means we can have nearly unlimited leads for nearly free. Most of the time it is gosh darn close to free. Sometimes you make a positive ROAS before they've even become technically a lead or a prospect for selling your core things. I built this company because I have been behind the scenes of thousands of companies, and I know their number one constraint is number of leads. They're just not getting in front of enough people. Their audience isn't big enough for the financial goals that they have. And rather than doing all these other things, let's use some ads, offset the cost, and set it up for a 24/7 system. Okay. And typically the constraint is you don't have enough or you can't afford them. Okay. So whatever you're doing to get leads is too expensive. And this is why, let's say that is one of your problems going into 2024. Peaceful Profits can help with that. So can a lot of other people. But going into 2024, one of the things I'm going to work on is, whatever that is. All right, then we have margin size. So a lot of people are running a business. There's not enough money left over at the end of the month. There's really two reasons for that. One is that you're not selling well enough. So selling is expensive. So for example, let's say you are running a VSL and you're getting calls booked for $500, $200, let's say $100, but it is taking you 10 phone calls to close one $3,000 offer, cost you $1,000 to sell that $3,000 offer. But then you have taxes, you have to pay yourself, maybe you have a fulfillment person, and then you got to do it all over again tomorrow. And it's just, you don't have enough margin, and selling is your main problem. Well, for a lot of people, the reason they aren't selling very well is because they don't have a very good selling environment. This is, again, why we do acquisition funnels, because I don't want to sell to strangers. I want to sell to fans. That's why I write books, put those books in funnels, run paid ads, turn a book reader into a super fan. That super fan gets on the phone and says, I'd love to work with you guys. And that's the beginning of the sales conversation, right? They're excited. They love what we do already. They know what that kind of thing, right? That's why we do what we do. It may not be the right option for you, but that is one way to improve selling without having to become a sales master or anything like that. All right, next is you might just not be charging enough. I would say half the work we do here at Peaceful Profits, even when we're helping people with acquisition funnels, is help them to charge more, because most people just aren't charging enough. And that's because we're all human beings. We have self-doubt. We use incorrect pricing strategies, right? A lot of people just use it feels right pricing strategy, which is not a scientific or business-oriented way to select pricing for the value that you've created. And as a result, they have companies that don't have the right margin. And so they don't have a company. They have a job. It's very stressful. They hate it. When really the only thing they needed to fix was the constraint of you need a little bit better math in your business. Okay, so these are the two questions. And yours may not be either of these, just depending on where you're at. We, for example, don't have a lead problem or a margin problem. But we have in the past definitely had lead problems and margin problems. This is just sort of if you're totally confused, you don't even know what your constraint would be or could be, it probably is one of these. If you know exactly what your constraint is, then honestly, it probably isn't one of these, unless you've identified one of these, if that makes sense. Okay. Little roundabout way there of explaining these two questions. What's the weakest link in the chain, and what's your number one constraint? Sometimes these are the same answer. And you know what? Congratulations. That means you have less to work on to fix your business. Like, lucky you, I'm jealous of you. Because for me, for example, to make 2024 the best year of my life, I have more than one thing that needs to be fixed. Not 10 things, not 5 things, 2, maybe 3 things. If you really drill down, what's the weakest link and what's our number one constraint? There's really only 2 or 3 things. And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to figure out what those 2 maximum 3 things are. And we're going to create something called a big rock plan for the first quarter of 2024. And here's a little bit of, this is so important. 2 or 3 items. I have 2 items here, but you can do 3 if you really, really want to. If we're really honest with ourselves, 2 is plenty for a 3-month time period, because everything else in our business still has to keep going on. We can't stop. We have to add these to our to-do list. But then I don't want you to work on anything else extra other than running your business and working on these 2 items for Q1. And with those items, create specific outcomes, lead metrics and lag metrics. So for example, let's say that your weakest link in the chain turns out to be email marketing. You heard me say 40 emails a month and you're like, oh my goodness, we send 3 a month. Well, there's a huge opportunity. You fix that, we're talking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times as much revenue from the existing asset that you already have, just by doing things which you can do, just sit down and write some emails. Okay, so let's say that's one of the things you did. Well, you're going to have lag metrics, remember, which is to say things that we can't really control, that you set as goals, just saying, I hope that we get here, kind of. A little bit more, I hope, but like this is what we're aiming for. So let's say your lag metric is 3x more revenue from your existing business because you're actually going to start email marketing. And your lead metric would be, I will write at least one, what would that be, like 1.25 emails a day or something? I will write 1 email a day minimum. Then for the next 3 months, you just try and write 1 email per day minimum. And let's say you do that in the first 2 weeks. You're like, oh my gosh, this is way easier than I thought. Do you jump to something else? No, you stay on this thing and you spend the rest of the weeks that are left in Q1 just getting better at it. Just focus on improving one thing in your business and trying to master it for 3 months. We're not even talking like 10 years, right? The Malcolm Gladwell, it takes 10 years to be a master or whatever. Let's just set the bar low enough we can achieve something. Pick 1 or 2 things that you're going to commit to. You're going to set yourself some goals and you're just going to try and master it and become really, really good at it in the next 3 months and see what happens. What will likely happen if you are of average competence, which I think you're above average, if you've already been listening to this for an hour and a half, you're very serious, clearly. You want to improve. You will find ways to improve. You'll be shocked at what happens at the end of 3 months of sustained and focused effort, improving just 1 or 2 or 3 things in your business. Then come Q2, what are we going to do? We can do this again, this whole exercise if we want to, or we may go into Q2 already knowing that we want to continue to improve, whatever these 2 things are. Or we may want to switch something up and say, okay, this is now no longer the weakest link. This is no longer the constraint. Now we have something else. And that's what we're going to address. And you just cycle through specific assignments, specific deadlines. If you have team members, figure out the assignments today. Now, whenever you do this, if this is day 3 and you're watching this again because you're going through it and I want to do it today, make the assignments now. The assignments that are due in a month, in 2 months, in 3 months. Get the team in on what the lead metrics are and the lag metrics are. Plan things out. And if you keep those plans and keep yourself busy enough with those plans, it gets really hard to get distracted. Because you're like, sorry, I can't really do that. I've got this thing that I'm working on. That's a beautiful excuse to not run your business into the ground. Is to say, I know exactly what I should be doing. I'm sorry I can't be distracted by whatever you're doing. I need to focus on this. Again, that in and of itself is worth this exercise. If you have a team, circle the team around these big rocks. What we have discussed in this video is big enough that it should be team concern, like team level concern. Because to be fair, we're talking about them and their ability to get paid. That's how serious all of this is. Now, the good news is that this also gives us a couple of other benefits. One, we just get distracted less. And as a result, we're affected less by external forces. So everyone is always talking about ad costs are rising, or AI has been developed, or this and this. And I'm not talking about putting your head in the sand and ignoring things. But what a lot of people are doing is they're focusing on just worrying about that stuff, not realizing that their business is slowly dying or slowing down or just being ruined by that distraction. And ironically, they and their business were affected by AI or were affected by expensive ad costs or were affected by all these other things. And they didn't have to be, because they could have been working to strengthen so many other areas of their business that they didn't even notice the 20% increase in ads, because everywhere else in their business 2x'd, or they didn't even really get negatively affected by AI because they were so focused on improving the labor multiple that AI became an ally. Now it's not something that's taking away from their business. It's helping their business to get a better return on labor, whatever it might be. The point here is that by really drilling down and really focusing and really understanding, it changes the rules of the game. It changes the game you're playing. It changes the environment in which you're operating. The people who can focus on weakest link in the chain and removing constraints, especially if they realize there's only a few of those things that can even be worked on at a time or that actually matter. If they can then do that with data by looking back on things they have or haven't done, and then to see all of that through the lens of lifestyle design to make sure they're building something that's sustainable, enjoyable, something worth owning and worth being a part of, those are the people that will have an incredible year this next year. It's not people with this secret or people with that secret, or the people who had this and that. That's not what's going to determine who has a great year next year. It's the people who can do this, who can look back, who can look inward, and then who can accurately look forward. I genuinely hope that you are one of those individuals. I hope that this has been helpful. I cannot overstate the benefit of doing this, and doing this not just annually, quarterly, tracking monthly. For those of you who really want to take this thing, I don't want to say seriously, because everybody takes it seriously, especially if it's how you pay your mortgage. It doesn't matter what size of a business you have. It pays your rent, pays your mortgage, pays your food. You're taking this seriously. But for those of you who really want to professionalize, to achieve a little bit more than just getting by, who want to have the kind of business that fulfills more than just financial dreams, but also lifestyle dreams, sense of worth and feeling, and how you feel engaged with your work and what you do with your work. These are the kinds of skills that will get you there. There's no funnel that will get you there. And I run a company that wants you to buy funnels, okay? As somebody who says, buy funnels because they're awesome, buy acquisition funnels from us specifically, I am telling you, that is not what is going to get you to where you want to go in and of itself. It is a tool if it makes sense. Remember the constraints we talked about. Once you complete this activity, you should know exactly whether or not having an acquisition funnel in your business would make sense. Working with us would make sense. Working with somebody else would make sense. So it's not the funnel that's going to get you there. It's a step. It might help to fix a weak link. It might help to fix a constraint. But what will get you there is your ability to look back, look inwards, and look forward, and then make smart decisions, regardless of what anything else looks like. Traffic sources can change, offer types can change, methods can change. AI can be here, AI cannot be here. The economy can be crashing, it can be doing well. All of those things, those external forces and factors, will be manageable and not just survivable, but thrivable through if you can master this skill. And that's coming from somebody who has been through all sorts of technological interruptions and recessions and problems and all sorts of things. It comes down to your ability to make accurate and smart decisions. All right, that's it, my friends. I hope this has been helpful. We will keep this up on YouTube for as long as YouTube exists. This will always be something worth revisiting. This will always be in fashion. This kind of planning and thinking is not a trend. It is a foundational principle for success in business. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.